OHIO podcast. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there is a wild man, Chris Wilds. That guy below me, that's Silky Smooth in the know, JR. And well, diagonal from me, he is my cousin and my favorite Buckeye, number 43, Ryan Miller, is with us tonight from the 2nd and 7 organization. Ryan, welcome to the OHIO podcast, my friend.
Man, thanks for having me. I'm so glad you finally asked me. It's about time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hang out with you guys. And I know this. It's been a long time, and I'm so glad I have an opportunity to be on the show with you guys. And hopefully we can have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. So, 400 and what is this? 407th episode of the OHIO. But when I started this, I didn't have gray in my chin, Ryan. Now I'm getting, I'm getting a little gray. But good to have you with us tonight. We are the official Ohio State podcast of Scarlet and Game. Go over to scarletandgame.com. Check out all the great articles written over there by fan-cited authors, and you can listen to our podcast there. So if you don't like the way we look, that's no problem. We have the audio version for you guys over there. We're also the Ohio State podcast of The College Huddle. Go over to thecollegehuddle.com. You can listen to our podcast and see all those great articles written over there, as well as 73 other of our closest friends from in and around college football. Now, Ryan, you are one busy dude. You just don't stay still. And we're going to ask you all kinds of great things about 2nd and 7, which I absolutely love. We're going to talk about that. But before we get started, we want everybody to know tonight, if you give to the Super Chat, all proceeds, 100% of the money from tonight's Super Chat will go to 2nd and 7.
Man.
So
that's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet.
Please consider being giving tonight, chat. And go ahead and put some money into the Super Chat, and that'll go to Ryan and helping all those kids in 2nd and 7. We'll make that announcement here in a little bit, too, as more people filter in to the live feed tonight. But, Ryan, let's before we get to 2nd and 7, let's go back to the mid-'90s. You're a high school kid up in the state up north.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, if I remember correctly, you grew up a fan of the Maize and Blue.
That's correct. So I grew up in Allen Park, Michigan. I actually was up in Detroit in Allen Park yesterday, and I was being inducted into the City of Allen Park Sports Hall of Fame yesterday.
Oh, Hall of Famer Ryan Miller with us tonight.
There you go. So I was up there with my family, and it's funny because I shared this story with them. When I was a kid, and I was an Allen Park Bulldog at 8 years old, 3rd grader. And of course, Jamie Morris was the running back at Michigan, and I back then you didn't, sign up for an organization and they gave you a practice jersey. You had to show up with your own practice jersey. And so I remember, getting a white T-shirt and writing 23 on there because that was that guy's number. You guys are too young to remember Jamie Morris, but Jamie Morris was a good little football player for University of Michigan. He's a running back, tailback, and of course I wanted to be a running back. And as the years went on, I'm old enough to where there wasn't 75 ESPN channels or streaming networks or whatever. There was literally one game a week. There was literally, 5 bowl games. Ohio State, if you didn't win the Big Ten Conference, you potentially were not going to a bowl game when I was a kid. You know that, right? Like that's the environment I grew up in. So my Thanksgivings were like tossing the ball around in the backyard with my brother, who was 2 years older than me, playing Ohio State, Michigan to go to the Rose Bowl. And my brother, being older than me, was Michigan, and I was Ohio State.
Oh,
that's the truth of the matter. And so as luck would have it, I was fortunate. I tell people all the time, you're going to see a few people that were born in Michigan in heaven, and I'm one of
them. So, all right, so let's fast forward. You're a great athlete, Allen Park, Michigan. You're getting recruited. And if I'm not mistaken, Notre Dame was heavy in your recruitment.
Yeah.
So tell us your recruiting story, Ryan.
I mean, Notre Dame, the story of Notre Dame. So Notre Dame comes into our high school at the time when I was a young player. And there wasn't a lot of guys coming through Allen Park offering scholarships through the years, although my brother played quarterback in Eastern Michigan and kind of got Allen Park a little bit on the map for, productive, good football. And so I was a little bit bigger, maybe faster, stronger than my brother, but he was a quarterback. So, it doesn't take much more to be faster and stronger than a quarterback. But anyways, a couple people came by, and when Notre Dame came by, the recruiting coordinator at the time, Coach Moore, offered me a scholarship in my coach's office, which a coach's office back then. This is beautiful too. Coach's office back then was like an auxiliary bathroom on the second floor of a high school. Seriously.
Yeah.
And a guy smoking a cigar. Like that's how we did it. And by the way, that same smoking cigar was the same like connected controller to rewind the VHS beta VHS tape of the previous game that you would watch over and over and over and over again. But anyways, we're sitting in this little room with, as you can imagine, it's like a Cracker Jack box with the video camera there, and the guy's smoking a cigar, and the dude comes in and he's like, "Listen, we want this guy to be a Notre Dame, a part of the Fighting Irish." And my coach looks him in the eye and says, "Look, you telling me right now you're offering this kid a scholarship, a full ride scholarship to play football at Notre Dame?" And he says, "Absolutely." And my coach, Ed Bellis, at the time, looks at me, Ed Bellis from Allen Park, Michigan. Looks at me and says, "Hey, man, I know you want to go talk home and talk to your mom and dad, but I'm telling you right now, this is a pretty damn good deal. You probably need to take this offer." And I said, "Well, I got to go home and talk to my mom and dad. I mean, I don't know what to tell you." So I go home to talk to my parents, and at that point, I started to realize that holy crap, I'm getting recruited by some pretty good some pretty good universities. And then as it had happened during my basketball season, and then my track and field season, and then getting ready for my next football season, all these coaches started coming around, snooping around. So at that point, I took visits to, back then you take 5 visits. So I took visits to Michigan State because they were in the state of Michigan, University of Michigan because they were in the state of Michigan, Notre Dame because they were the first on the scene to offer me a scholarship, Boston College because Tom Coughlin was the coach and he was so dynamic. You guys might not remember Tom Coughlin, but he won Super Bowls with the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Flutie just won the Heisman not too long ago at that moment. So Boston College was ascending in college football. So, and they were like, "Man, you could play tight end. We'll let you play both ways." And they were really hard recruiting me. And then John Cooper was coming up all the time in Ohio State. So but of all those 5 schools, Ohio State was probably number 5, like going into the recruiting season. I didn't know much about them. I'd never been to Columbus. I mean, I'd been to Michigan State. I'd been to Michigan. I mean, I just knew a little bit more about Notre Dame because of Newt Rockne and some of the famous legendary things. The flash of Boston College and Doug Flutie was, and Griffin won so long ago, right? So, putting my visits together, we had 5 visits, and I put them in order of preference. And so Ohio State was my last visit because they were my least favorite. And as luck would have it, again, it's just crazy to think, but my dad, I'm so fortunate to have great parents. But my dad told me, "Look, go to these schools, listen to them, but don't commit on the spot because you're going to want to commit every single visit. Mm-hmm. And let's get through every visit and then make a good, thoughtful decision." And I said, "Okay, that's what we'll do." So we go to Michigan State, and they're like, "Man, we want you to be here." And I was like, "Look, I got to go down, and I got 4 more visits. Let me just, talk to you when I'm done." And they're like, "Okay, well, I pray to God we're still standing, but, good luck." Then I go to Michigan, and they're like, "Hey, I don't mind you going to another place, but where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Boston College." They're like, "That's no problem, whatever." "Who else are you going to?" I said, "We're going to Notre Dame." I said, "Oh, I don't want you to go to Notre Dame." I said, "Well," and then I'm also going to Ohio State. He's like, "Man, then don't go to Ohio State. Please don't go to Ohio State." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Just don't take a visit there. It's not that good there." They kept trying to talk me out of even taking a visit there. But I was like, "Hey, listen, I gave him my word. I'm going to take my visits. I'll call you back." So I go to Boston College, and it's unbelievable. You go to Boston College as a 17-year-old kid, and you're having lobster on the sound, and you got all this stuff going on, and you got all these young co-eds at all these different universities. It's unreal, out of body experience. The only difference is it is definitely East Coast. It's not Midwest. It's East Coast, and there's a difference between Midwestern flavor and East Coast. Just that's the truth. And so it didn't feel quite right, but I did say I would give him, I'd call him afterwards. Tom Coughlin was great. The head recruiting guy was upset as an East Coast guy. You can imagine, was just so mad, MFing me, and he was mad. Which I guess that made my decision pretty easy. And then Lou Holtz, it was really hard to say no to Lou Holtz. I go down to Notre Dame, and he's just like the nicest guy on the planet. And he really
Hey,
was. He's like
he
grandpa.
came in. He said, "Ryan, we just really want you here at Notre Dame."
Absolutely. That's exactly what he sounded like. And he was just full of a bunch of stories and
Yeah.
anecdotes and, inspirational themes. And, he just was a football guy. And so I really enjoyed my time with him. But I told him same thing. I said, look, I got to make it to all my visits before I commit. And he said, well, aren't we at your last visit? I said, no, I got one left. He says, where are you going? I says, Ohio State. He said, oh, just don't take a visit there. Don't take a visit there. I said, what do you mean? He says, man, I coached there. You're going to fall in love with that place. And I said,
Oh.
oh, well, I never been there. I've never been there before. He says, well, just don't go there. Just come here. He said, I'll call you back. So I'm literally driving down to Columbus, the way you take it from Detroit is you go 75 to 23.
Yep.
And you take it down. And I'm making a list of the pros and cons of why I should go to Michigan or why I should go to Notre Dame. And I'm not even thinking about going to Ohio State. I mean, that's the 91 is the year. And so I'm driving down and I pull up and I go into the hotel, which is close to the old Damon's on Olentangy River Road. And a kid by the name of Bobby Hoying picks me up to take me over to campus. You might recall that name. He was a pretty good player. Mm-hmm. More importantly, he was a good person, And so he takes me over and he gets me in front of a guy by the name of Jack Thrush, who was an offensive lineman. He's not my brother-in-law, but anyways. And some of the other guys. And I just was like, these dudes, man, I can see these guys being my brothers. Like, I think these guys are my guys. The guys at Michigan were guys from the East Coast a little bit. Guys from Boston College were East Coast. Notre Dame guys from all over the country. But the guys from Ohio were guys from Ohio, from the Midwest. My guys, my kind of guys. So I thought, this feels right. But I still was like, man, my dad and I, we didn't even talk about this place, right? So the next day, instead of a one-on-one meeting with Coach Cooper, Coop has an actual breakfast with everybody. And he staged it. Coop was a genius in recruiting. So he staged this meeting at Damon's and we're having breakfast. And he's like, we had you all here and everyone's in this room for a reason. It's because we're going to win the Rose Bowl with this group of athletes in this room. And he's like, he looks at Corey Stringer. He says, Corey Stringer, stand up. And he's as big as this door. Like he's just an enormous dude. Player of the year in the country. He's an Ohio kid. He stands up and he says, Corey, can I have your word that you are going to be a Buckeye? And Corey says, Coach, I've wanted to be a Buckeye my whole life. And the place starts clapping. And so the next dude is Luke Fickle. Stand up, Luke. Luke stands up, tears in his eyes. Says, Coach, as far as I can remember, John Hicks was my little league coach. I would do nothing more in my life but to play here at Ohio State. You have my word, I will be a Buckeye. And then the next guy was Eddie George. And the next guy was Lorenzo Stiles. And the next guy was Rob Kelly. And they're coming around the room. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're literally going to come to me and I have to have a decision. And everyone said yes at this point. I look over at my dad like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I mean, this is talk about putting you on the spot. I look over at my dad and my dad just looks right back at me and says, so I stand up and I say, Coach, I'm coming to Columbus. And he says, hey, we got one from Michigan. He gets all crazy. People start clapping. We get in the car, and my mom, Eric, you know my mom. My mom is like flustered. She's like, Dennis, that's my dad's name. She's like, Dennis, what just happened in there? And my dad says, I don't know, Barbara, but we better get to the bookstore because we don't own any Ohio State gear. And we went right to the Ohio State bookstore. We bought a sweatshirt for everybody in the family. We drove up that 23 and 75, and we never looked back. And my dad told me in that car ride, he said, look, you had a decision to make, and there was a lot of different choices you could have made. But it's your job now to make your decision the right decision. And so I worked my face off from the time I made that decision to today to be proud of my decision to be a Buckeye. And I've certainly never regretted choosing Ohio State over all of those other schools. And so that's my kind of Buckeye origin story.
Ryan Wickerham says, "Tell Ryan thanks again for that advice he gave me." So there's Ryan thanking you for some advice you gave him at one time, Ryan.
Such a great. That's great to hear from Ryan. Great to
All
hear
right,
from Ryan.
we've got a couple super chats for you. So the first super chat actually came from Blue Wolverine. First donation to the 2nd and 7 organization was from a Wolverine. That money spends all the same, doesn't it, Ryan?
Well, you know what? Ohio State has been fortunate. We've been fortunate to be able to connect the dots with all sorts of different, colleges throughout the country. Of course, everyone knows Ohio State, Michigan. We hate each other on one day a year, but from 2nd and 7 standpoint, there are student athletes at Michigan that read to second graders and give them books as part of 2nd and 7. So while we hate them on that one day, I'm proud of those student athletes. Matter of fact, a real quick shout out to Amanda from Cabrina in Allen Park, Michigan. She's one of the softball coaches at the University of Michigan right now. She played in the Olympics a few years ago, won a silver medal. She was inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame with me yesterday.
Oh.
And she's a staff member at the University of Michigan. And those kids have been reading through the years. And the connection of Allen Park kids, downriver Detroit kids, was kind of fun. And she's younger than me. But we've known each other because she was such a just special softball player and, again, Olympian. Went on to, again, everybody's got a flaw. That's her cross she's got to bear. She went to Michigan. But aside from that, she still has that 2nd and 7 love. And so it's fun to see that there's a Wolverine given to 2nd and 7 today. That's great.
Jay Thompson, 1999 super chat going to 2nd and 7. You had me at helping kids, Eric, he said. So there we go. So a super chat there. We have another one. Let me scroll down here. This one comes from Dylan Kuhn. He said, Boilermaker Nation checking in with a $10 donation to 2nd and 7. So we've had a Michigan, a Buckeye, and a Boilermaker donating. And again, reminder to everybody tonight that all super chats are being donated to Ryan, my cousin's 2nd and 7 organization that he runs with Luke Fickle and Vrabel. And we're going to be getting into that in just a minute. But you mentioned the Rose Bowl in '96, Ryan, that in the recruiting that Cooper had the foresight and knowledge to bring that up as a part of his recruiting pitch to all you guys. That was the night. I'll never forget it. That's the night I was baptized as a Buckeye. I never looked back from that night, But there's a memory I have as a kiddo. I'm in junior high, and of course, your mom and dad were gracious enough to share tickets with my family once a year. We got to come and to watch you guys and watch you and your teammates at the shoe. Sitting on 50-yard line, that was amazing. I remember sitting behind Orlando Pace's family and having to sit on my dad's shoulders just to see over, But I'll never forget this as long as I live. So here's my story. But real fast, let me share my wife's message here because she's a teacher at Olentangy. 2nd and 7 is a magnificent foundation. They also put on a spectacular football camp that my son has been able to go to a couple times. So
that's true.
We'll get into all of that in just a second, but I got to share my story first. Okay, I'm in middle school, and your mom and dad are like, "Hey, let's go over to Ryan's apartment." And then when Ryan and his teammates get to the apartment, we'll all go out to eat. And we drive over to your apartment, Ryan, and of course your mom's going to clean up, pick up, and everything. She's going to be a mom, right? Who in the world had a boa constrictor as a pet?
Yeah, that was Matt Calhoun.
Okay.
And you might not remember Matt Calhoun, but Matt Calhoun was a fullback, number 39. I mean, at the time, Matt Calhoun was the strongest player in the history of Ohio State football. And when I say strongest, I mean the bench, squat, and clean. That's how we measured the strength of a player. So those three lifts combined, Matt Calhoun was the strongest player in the history of Ohio State. But he was my roommate, and Belisari was also the roommate that year. And but Matt had the snake. And we always wondered. I wondered the same thing. Like, why do you need a snake? But I guess he was just, I don't know. He's interested in it. I could never figure it out. It never impressed anybody. It freaked more people out than it impressed, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'd have to go buy mice to feed it, and we would watch it, it'd strangle its prey and then eat it. I mean, it's crazy, but I guess that's what you do when you got to get, your mind right to go run into people on the weekends. But that's what Matt Calhoun had to do. But I thought it was crazy too. I agree with you.
I just remember that as a kid, and so there's my
That's
proof. We
funny.
are related, people.
That's
There you go.
funny.
All right, so I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I'm gonna let Chris and Jr. ask a question, and then we're gonna open up to the chat. But look who's in the chat real fast. Mike
Oh my
Wargo.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
My
Glad
man.
all glad all
My
is well
man.
with you. Great memories. Go Bucks.
Oh, Mike's a teammate, and he's been to a few second and seven events through the years, and I couldn't be more proud of what he's done through the years. And talk about a great memory being able to play with Mike and all of our teammates. You spend so much time together that you can't help but become, like brothers. And doesn't mean you live in the same house after you graduate, and you may not even get around to one another as often as you'd like. But when Mike's name pops up, it just brings up great memories. And Mike was just such a great human, and I'm proud of him. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, Mike.
All right. So for anybody who doesn't know, in the chat, guys, all super chats tonight are going to be donated to Second and Seven organization. Ryan, tell those someone who might not know, what is Second and Seven, and why is this such an important? Maybe give us the genesis of it.
Yeah, I'll give you the elevator speech. So Second and Seven was designed 25 years ago when we first graduated, and it was to promote reading by providing free books and positive role models to kids in need while encouraging young athletes to pay it forward. What that means is me, Mike, and Luke wanted to be able to read to children because we felt as student athletes we had a sphere of influence that we could use. So that's the role models. And then we would go read to those children who were in need. And we feel like at second grade, if you could teach a kid that reading can be fun, because look, the reality is reading stinks if you don't like what you're reading. I mean, there's some topics that I can't stand. And if you give me a book on that topic, I hate reading. That's the truth. Now, if you give me a football book about Ray Nitschke, I might love reading more than anybody on the planet in that moment. And see, that's the point. That's reading. And I've tried my hardest the last 25 years to teach kids. Not everyone's like me or like you guys. I mean, people have different interests. But there's a book and there's libraries of books about those various interests. And if we can just get somebody to realize that, we can change people's lives. Because the majority of the issues that take place in our life as human beings is because the education of those children, it just isn't up to snuff. So if a third grader can't read like a third grader, he's most likely going to get in trouble. And then by the time he's in fourth grade, he's even going to get more in trouble. He's going to disengage. And then by the time he's in high school, and next thing you know, decided that he things that aren't fairly acceptable in a normal society, which means he's incarcerated. So there's a direct correlation with the literacy rates and the population that's in the prison. I'm not naive enough to think I can solve all the world's problems downstream, but I think I can try to help them in the second grade level. I'm just trying to be the strongest spoke in the wheel. And that's what we've been doing for 25 years. And so people can donate their time, their talent, their treasure. They can donate their books. But the reality is everyone's got a second grader in their community. If you could just get them to learn how to read, that will change their stars. I'm telling you. And so we've been doing it for 25 years. I can't tell you how many people their lives have been changed and affected. I pray to God we can continue to do more. I'd love to do more. But yeah, so people online, you can donate, like I said, you can donate your money, and that's phenomenal. You can donate your time to go read to a child, or you can donate books that maybe you've got some children's books at home that you haven't done anything with for a long time, and you're not sure what to do with them. Well, Second and Seven is a great organization. You donate the books to Second and Seven, and we'll find the next Billy or Johnny or Joey that can use those books, and it's going to love on those books and going to teach them how to read. So I think it's amazing. We've been able to do it. There's been 26 different states we've been helping. 192 different universities and high schools have their university student athletes reading to second graders. We've given out over 1 million books. We've started writing our own children's books because it's cheaper to write them and publish them and print them ourselves than it is to buy them off the shelf. So we've done a lot of things like that, and you can tell I'm a little passionate about it. But I honestly believe, like, look, I'm not saying if you gave me a book about something I'm not interested in that I would love to read. I'm telling you that's the opposite. Like that's the point. Like we got to get these kids to understand that reading is my favorite story of all time. One of my favorite teammates of all times is Andy Katzenmoyer. People used to say things about him and his acumen, and it used to really upset me because if you've ever seen him in the football arena, he's one of the smartest human beings that I've ever met. But it's because he loves football to his core. So when he talks about football, he's like a PhD and then some. Now he's not going to talk about that about physics. He's not going to talk about that about science because it's not interesting to him. But if you're talking about, he can read the elements of what's interesting to him. Now, if we never gave him a chance to do that, then he wouldn't have had success in life. And he's super successful right now, by the way. I see him all the time.
Yeah.
And he's one of the greatest dudes in Columbus right now. And I'm convinced, and he comes and reads with me, by the way, to children. But I don't know. I don't want to take up a whole night talking about kids and literacy, but it started 25 years ago, and I didn't realize that it would have this much of an impact on my life, but it truly has. And I encourage anyone, if you go out and read to a second grader, you're going to be reminded that, holy crap, all it takes, especially male role models, all it takes is one person to believe in you, and it can change a kid. It really can. So, we may or may not know how much sphere of influence we have, but you don't have to be an Ohio State football player to go help a child read. And I tell people all the time, man, when Braxton Miller was a quarterback at Ohio State, I'll never forget this. I go read to kids, and I tell them my name is Ryan Miller, and this one kid wrote me a thank you note and said, "Hey, Ryan, thanks for coming. Are you related to Braxton Miller?" Yeah. No, actually, we're not. He's just not as fast as me. I used to tell the kids.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, man, it's been a labor of love. Amy Hoying's been the executive director, and Hoying is, Tommy's wife. And, we've been doing it for so long that we love what we do. We are proud of what we do. We want more people to join our huddle as we continue to grow. But look, the second graders are going to solve the world of tomorrow. It ain't going to be us. It's going to be the second graders.
Right.
So.
We have a $5 super chat from Larry Daniels. Thanks for being here, Ryan. I'm happy to give to a great cause.
Oh, that's really, really nice, Larry. Thank you so much.
So far, guys, we have raised $45 so far tonight for second and seven that will go to helping second graders, not only in Central Ohio, but really all over the place. They're all over the place. So continue to give in the super chat if you'd like to donate. Chris, I've been hogging this interview here. I'm going to turn it over to you, but here's one from Tyler. Eric, JR, Chris, and Ryan, thoughts on the ESPN article today. I knew we were going to get here.
We were going to get here.
All right, Ryan. Your thoughts on Michigan, man, and the news that came out today.
Okay, so, I did see that, and people have been texting me, of course, as you can imagine. And look, the reality is it's been interesting to see how slow it's been to have any kind of ruling. I mean, the reality is just rule on something, get it over with, and let's move on. Let's start playing football again. Like, clearly they cheated. Clearly there's something wrong. Rule on it. Give them a penalty and let's move forward. Like, I don't even care what the penalty is at this point. Just give them something and let's move forward. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that the cheating incident, and I've said this before, it's as a former player that's played in that game, it's unfortunate because it's everything that the game is not. That game has nothing to do with cheating. It's the complete opposite of cheating. It's the most special thing ever. It's the most special thing in sports. So, and it's heart-wrenching when you lose, and it's unbelievably exhilarating when you win. And so cheating has nothing to do with that contest. Like no one should ever come. I teach my kids all the time, there's only one thing worse in the world than losing. Only one. And it's cheating. And that's the truth. That's the God's honest truth. And you don't have any reason to cheat in that game. That game's too precious, too special to cheat. And so I've always been of the thought that I think that they've realized that now. I think that they will never do that again. I don't think anybody's ever going to do that again. I think they'll pay for it. I think there's going to be some type of ruling on it. But the reality is, I don't even care about it anymore because it's the next season. I want to beat them so bad. I want to line up, and I don't even want to talk about it. I want to talk about what they're lined up in, where they're motioning to, and then I want to go get them. That's what I want to do.
You sound like what Cooper said when I talked to John Cooper and I told him I was related to you. He goes, "Really?" I think he was flabbergasted looking at you and looking at me that somehow we were related. But then he said, "I wish I would have had 50 Ryan Millers on my team." He goes, "And no one ever played harder for me than Ryan Miller did." And so that was a great compliment
That's
Coach
a great
Coop gave
compliment.
you. $50 super chat from Devin. God is good. Love your neighbor and Buckeye football. OH. So with that, we're up to $100. We are up to $100 donated to Second and 7. We have a Missouri guy in the chat tonight. There's my buddy Skeeter. Hey y'all, MIZ, buddy. Cotton Bowl champs checking in.
Don't do
Yes,
that,
we
Eric.
are.
Don't do
Hey,
that.
he IOs my OH. It goes both ways.
It's all
right.
good. It's all good. Hey, real quick, Eric, you know
Yeah.
what we got to do? If we can get this thing to $250, you know what I'm going to do?
Okay, well,
I'm going to send you 3 guys some Second and 7 swag. More importantly, we got to get something in JR's background, man. We got nothing. It's like nothing back there. It looks like, you know what it looks like? It looks like a swing and a miss. It's an axle. It's like an intentional walk.
You know what it looks like?
It's like gross. What's going on, JR?
It's gonna look like Michigan's trophy case after what happened.
No doubt. That's what Michigan won last year after they cheated. Nothing.
That was the motivation.
JR,
yeah. This is what
that?
Michigan will look like. No, we moved like 2 months ago, and my wife is a teacher, and we had all these things planned for the summer, and my garage is still full of all of our stuff. So I'm not making excuses. It's on me.
Yeah,
Don't
that sounds like an excuse, JR.
I know. It's on me.
Reality. If your wife's a teacher, she's got 75 Yeti mugs from thank yous from kids. Throw a couple of those things up there, man. Come on.
She always gives those to her mom, but it's true. So I'll throw those up there next time I get them.
Yeah, throw a couple of those up there next time. And hey, Eric, make sure you let me know. We'll send him some kind of something that says Second and 7. There's got to be something better than that.
Yeah. My wife's in the chat. She says Ryan seems like he's still ready to hunt some Wolverines. Yeah, he is. That's my man.
Hey, man, I don't think that goes away. And what's funny is as you get older, you realize how special that game is, and so that's the truth of it. And you guys are all right. I mean, it's a bummer that it's happened. I know there's a lot of people that want to keep talking about it. My brother included. My brother, I just up in Detroit. He hears it all year long.
Yeah.
But I'm totally turning the page. I want to beat them so bad in the shoe this year. I can hardly stand it. And I think we got a really, really good team to beat them. And beat them bad. So I don't want to wish the time away, but boy, I can't wait to November this year.
All right, Chris, you've been quiet this whole time, man. Give my
that's
man
hard
Ryan
for
a
me.
question. I know.
That's hard for me. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Ryan. You played with one of the greatest secondaries maybe ever at Ohio State. Springs, Moore. I mean, just the list goes on and on. As you look at this team's secondary this year, how do you think it stacks up versus the secondary you played with?
Yeah, that's putting me on the spot. So I would say they are this current group is in my humble opinion has the chance to be as good as that group.
Fair enough.
That group is the best of all times. I mean, Sean Springs. You mentioned Damon Moore, Rob Kelly, Sean Springs, and Ty Howard. Those are the starters, by the way.
Yes.
The fifth was. You know who that was? Antoine Winfield.
Yeah.
Antoine Winfield might be one of the greatest players to ever play at Ohio State, next to Sean Springs. And then you got Rob Kelly was crazy.
Yes.
Damon Moore may have been the best tackling safety we've ever had at Ohio State. And then Ty Howard was as good of a cover corner as you can get. So
there was
There was
what, 2 first-rounders and 2 third-rounders, I think, went in the NFL out of that group.
And every one of those guys played in the league for years.
Yes.
like I said, and that's 5 dudes for 4 positions. And by the way, that year the young guys were like Gary Berry.
Yes.
You remember?
Yeah. I do
Gary
remember.
Berry had to sit back and watch.
I'm the one guy on the panel who probably can remember because I'm the oldest guy.
Yeah. Ahmed Plummer had to watch.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The thing is that these are NFL guys. These guys had to watch. They sat back and got water. Those were water boys. Like seriously, like Ahmed Plummer was juice box boy. Go get me a juice box. That dude's an NFL player. That's how good the team was. So I don't know if I answered your question. I don't know if I answered your question, but that was fun.
To follow up with that, Ryan, in today's game with 14 teams going to the college football playoff, you guys would have been in the playoffs every year.
What has my contention been for years since the playoff thing started, Eric?
Yeah.
Under Cooper, they would have had at least 2 national titles, 96, I think 93.
What about 98?
I think 98 too. Between 93, 96, and 98, it's hard to argue one of those 3 would not have made it through those playoffs with the kind of players and the talent on those 3 teams. For sure. You know, those 3 teams had all the pieces of the puzzle to win a national championship. You know, you had a big, strong offensive line. You had a really talented tailback. You had a really solid quarterback. You had unbelievable skill positions. Your defense was rock solid. They had everything. And, you know, they're fun to watch. They had swagger. They had the whole thing. They had the whole thing.
Yeah, and just that defense you were on was just amazing. Like you were talking about the defensive backs. Man, the defensive line, the linebacking group, I mean, it seemed that there was just an all-star at every position.
Well, the fun part was, you know, it was a race to the ball, and it was, you know, that was silver bullets. I mean, I should go grab my silver bullet deal, man. You know, you only the silver bullets got this plaque at the end of the year, and to this day, there's only 11 dudes, 12, because we gave Antoine one, even though he wasn't the starter, but he was good enough to be the nickel, so we kind of gave it 12. But we got this thing of literally bullets, like silver bullets with everybody's, you know, number etched in it. And it was from Fred Puggich and Coach Cooper and all starting 11 plus Twan. And, you know, to this day, that's like one of the most special things. But the reality is, you know, those guys and that time back then was just I'm not sure you could have that again because, you know, most of those guys had been at school for 4 or 5 years. And we had all come in together. We had all grown up together. We had all made mistakes together. We had all experienced heartbreak. I don't know if you remember. I don't want to get too sad and stuff, but like, you know, Anthony Gwynn was one of the awesome defensive backs in that same era. But his brother Jason Gwynn was maybe he came in my class of all of us with Corey Stringer and all the guys I was telling you that recruiting story, Luke Fickle and those guys and Lorenzo Stiles and, you know, Rob Kelly and Ty Howard. Of all those players, Jason Gwynn was maybe the best. He was the kid from Brookhaven, big defensive end. When he played, got our first play, I'll never forget, it was snowing against Indiana, and he went off for like 13 tackles. Second teamer came in and made 13 tackles. I came in as second teamer, made like 2. So jacked. And he made like 13. And, you know, he passed away. I'm sure you guys may or may not remember. He got involved in a car crash right before one of our bowl games. It was unbelievably tragic. But I think that, you know, I'm not sure there's teams that go through those types of elements because you don't have 5 years or 4 years on campus anymore. I mean, you got guys you're asking to come play for you for 6 months, you know, right now. And it just is what it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying I'm not sure you're going to have the silver bullets like the silver bullets when Vrabel literally came in for 4 years and had to wait his turn and then, you know, fought like tooth and nail to play every snap. And on the other side, Matt Finkus did the same thing. And Luke Fickle was just absolutely as tough as nails as of any human on the planet. I'm thinking there's no one else I'd rather have in my foxhole than that dude. You know, Winfield Garnett was nuts. just absolutely nuts and big as a house and strong and fast and elite. And these guys have been around for a while. And I'm not sure you're going to have that again. Like the defense we have this year will be this year's defense, and it won't be next year's defense, because next year's defense will have like 7 of the 11 different dudes. Whereas our 11 I just mentioned, we all were around for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And that makes it special. Truly it does.
Yeah. I just wrote an article for our magazine that's being released here in a couple of days about how Jim Knowles is kind of recreating in his own image the Silver Bullets and how that nickname came out. And you guys just met, was it for Cooper's birthday, I believe? Y'all got together for John Cooper and for his birthday and had a picture of the Silver Bullets. That was really cool. All right, JR. It's 8:44. You haven't got to ask your question yet. I've been hogging it all. Go for it, brother.
No worries, man. It's all been great conversation. Hey, Ryan, I want to talk about practice a little bit, because we're entering the fall practice, summer practice, whatever you want to call it right now. And obviously, I'm sure you have plenty of memories of that. Just what's your thoughts on kind of what the players are going through around this time as the season is pumping up? I mean, there were multiple years for you with that. And then my kind of additional question onto that is, you obviously went against great running backs, Pepe Pearson, Eddie George, awesome guys like that. Was there ever an underrated running back that you went against in practice that maybe Buckeye fans, they know about, but maybe they don't really know how great he was, because there's somebody, obviously, like I said, great players in front of him?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Okay, so first of all, let me take the first question. This time of year, I talk to my friends a lot that we played, and I don't know if you guys played ball when you were in high school or not, but when you play football, if you're in high school, you play 4 years and you talk about it for the next 40, because it's unbelievable. It really is. It's like the greatest thing ever. And if you play in college, you just talk till your deathbed. I mean, you just constantly are talking to your buddies. I mean, this is the way it is. So like this time of year is electric, and the difference, I think, because I've gone over and watched the guys play now, and I can recall, times when I was a kid, freshman through senior at Ohio State. I think the biggest difference is, there's a lot more emphasis on, the heat exhaustion and the lack of being out in the elements as much as we were. I don't remember it being as bad as maybe it really was, because I think we were just, our minds were just jacked up. We were like, hey man, we got to do whatever we got to do, because we got to win every game. So we got to play. We would practice 3 times a day and that kind of stuff. They changed the rules a lot these days that you're not doing that. But I think you're practicing more these days than than we did. I think you're actually going through film study, and you're more surgical in your practices. You're doing more walkthroughs in the facility, like in indoors. So you're shaded from the elements. Your time out in the heat is probably less. You know what? Hold on. Check this out. Hi. Here, man. Hey, show these guys. This is my son, Nolan. He wanted to show you something. Back that up.
Oh, look at that. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Nolan, you want to say hi to these guys?
What's up, Nolan?
How's it going, Nolan?
You play for Upper Arlington, right?
Yeah, he's a Golden Bear.
Yeah, you guys going.
He wanted to show you the Silver Bullets. Okay, take that away, man. Take that back.
That's cool. That's cool.
I texted him, see if he can bring it over here. So anyway, I think the difference is the fact that you've got, less physicality, but more practices. It's hard to describe, other than I think they're doing more now. I really do, but it's just not as physical, which is probably good. So they're doing more preparation, more time where they're doing some different types of shell drills and tons more film and actual walkthroughs, thud instead of bring to the ground. I tease people all the time. I tackled Eddie George more than anybody on the planet, because we tackled people to the ground in practice. You realize that? That's what I did. But nowadays, you don't do that. And I think that's good. I definitely also think, to answer your question, JR, is guys have nervous energy regardless, man. Back then you did. You're going to have it this year. You're going to have it next year. I can tell my boy Nolan, he's got ninth grader for Upper Arlington. He's getting all excited and he's got that jacked up nervous energy. That never goes away when you play football because it's a dangerous sport, and anytime you go out there, you can get hurt. And if you're a boxer, before you go to box somebody, you're nervous. Like, I don't care what you say. Wrestling, you're getting jacked up, but you're a little bit nervous. So while things are different, there's some things that are the same. I do think that the less physicality of it is good and bad. It's good because we don't get kids hurt in practice, but it's bad because now we have, less practice of actually bringing guys to the ground. And that's just me being the old guy, get off my lawn guy. I'm getting to be an old man, right? So that's kind of the first question. The second question was, who was my favorite in practice, right? And there's a few different ones. Of course, I just mentioned Eddie George, but everybody knows Eddie George. And he was really, really, really hard to tackle in practice, although I did tackle him a lot because we practice against him a lot. But Jermon Jackson is a kid that came in. You made Chris shake his head. So Jermon, I used to call him the hippie shake because he could shake. His hips were so good. And Chris, maybe you saw him in high school, but this dude could shake. I mean, you could go to get him, and boy, he was gone real quick, and he's smooth, and he just wasn't quite as fast as those other dudes. I mean, you got to remember when I was in school, you had Raymond Harris and Eddie George and Robert Smith and Pepe Pearson, and you had some pretty good ball players. Oh, Butler Benote. You had some pretty good players. Then Jermon Jackson steps in, and it's like, good Lord, I can't even play. But Travis McGuire was a kid out of Massillon that was like all world, and he got hurt and he got homesick and he never played. But I don't know if he got hurt and he got homesick, or if he just looked and he had Robert Smith and Eddie George and Raymond Harris ahead of him. I mean, that's real. That's like real. But that's a great question, and that Jermon Jackson. Now, the bummer is Jermon's not with us anymore, and I'm so sad to see him pass. But I loved him as a brother. I hated him on practice days because I tackled him a ton, but he supported 2nd and 7 like no other. He would always show up like all my brothers would. And he was one of them. And hippie shake, I loved him dearly. He was a phenomenal player.
Yeah. Great stories, man. All right, chat. I don't want to keep Ryan all night, and he's been so gracious with his time. If you want to throw some questions in the chat for Ryan, we will do some. We'll fire some quick questions at him. There was one in here from Devin. Here we go. Ryan has that energy. Any thoughts on coaching? Then he says maybe O-line. Listen. You've coached your boy. I know that.
Yeah.
And some.
I'm going to give you a little background. So my first year I ever coached. Okay, when I graduated from Ohio State. I have a cup of coffee with the Jets. I come back home, right? Bill Parcells, by the way, was the coach of the Jets, and Bill Belichick was the linebacker coach. So I had camp on Long Island with the Jets, with those guys. It was amazing. But anyways, I come back to Columbus, and Luke gets cut from the Saints, and so he's coaching at a place or working at a place called Simcoe Controls in Columbus. Luke is doing that. I'm doing a radio show in town. Tommy Hoying is selling some securities for Morgan Stanley. And the three of us, were thick as thieves in college. In each other's weddings, that whole deal. But anyways, so Luke says, man, my uncle wants me to help him coach the 7th grade A&M Stallions, St. Agatha and St. Matthias Stallions. So, of course, he's a sales kid. So they all were kind of feeder schools, middle schools to the sales school. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to coach with you, and Tommy's going to coach with you. We show up, and there's 17 kids show up. And we're in this, diocese Catholic middle school league. So here's these 3 Ohio State football players coaching these little kids from 7th graders in this Catholic thing. So we go out there, and I'm like all jacked up, all energetic. I'm trying to teach them how to adjust with different things, and I'm just totally overloading them, giving them too much information. not knowing that I'm giving them that, by the way. I'm just like, this is my frame of reference. So I'm just like dumping them. And these little guys are looking at me like, my brain can't process all that. But they are seventh graders, so they're not going to like complain, but they're just like, I can tell there's just something's wrong. We go out, we play the first game, and this team is not as good as us, but we're not doing that good defensively. I'm like, guys, what's going on here? And they make this adjustment, like, and they're not doing it. They just, because I gave them too much. So we tie that game. I'll never forget this. So Luke, Tommy, and I tie this football game. This is back in like 1998. And by the way, it's 1998. I got to tell people. So we go out to have a beer afterwards. And I'm telling Luke, I take my hat off. I'm scratching my head. I just like, oh, man. I got the napkins out. I said, Luke, I got to be honest with you. I think we're a little too complex defensively. He says, no, Sherlock. Of course we are. We got to simplify things, you idiot. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. You're probably right. We probably just need to keep it simple. Yeah, we need to keep it simple, you moron. So we ended up keeping it simple. We win the rest of the games. We win the Bishop Bowl. And that's Luke Fickle's first trophy as a coach was when we coached that little Bishop Bowl team, boy. That was so much fun. But since that time, we coach, and Coach Tressel asked me to coach, and a lot of the coaches have asked me through the years. I would love to coach. I love being involved in the molding of young men. But right now, I'm molding Nolan and all my kids, like my boy and my boys and my daughter. So I'm engaged in the community here. I coach like crazy. I love the kids in the community. One day maybe I'll coach college or pros or whatever. But right now, I just want to stay close to home, and that's what I do. But I certainly enjoy, more so than the sport, to be honest with you. More so than the sport, I enjoy watching kids and giving them what my coaches always gave me was a belief in themselves that they can do more than they could possibly imagine if they just dig in and go for it.
Dylan, what was Ryan's favorite away stadium? And then he says it should be Purdue.
Purdue was cool. Purdue was cool with that big drum coming out. But my dad used to always say Wisconsin was a stadium that he really, really hated because the fans were so amazingly disruptive, and they really were. But I think that when we played at Penn State, it was probably the loudest. Penn State was pretty nutty. Back then, you had to walk from the locker room to the stadium, like the grass. Like that walk was the equivalent of walking by like the hot dog vendor. Like you walked in the bowels of the stadium. And they would just put a rope up real quick, and people would be like having their beers and grabbing you and touching you. I mean, you were literally walking in the concourse of the stadium.
Wow!
Like, how crazy is that? You imagine just going to get like a beer or a hot dog, and all of a sudden it's like, hold on, here comes Michigan. Like, what? Like, that's what they used to do at
kind of like
State.
The Michigan Tunnel sounds like,
Yeah, imagine Michigan Tunnel, but fans allowed to be like literally right next to you. Like literally on the same surface. That's how it was at these stadiums back then. Wisconsin was bad. They used to have an actual jail cell in the stadium because it was so crazy. And then Penn State was pretty bad too. But that's how crazy it was back then.
Most memorable moment as a Buckeye, Ryan?
There's so many of them. I don't know. How much time do you have? One of the ones. First of all, Rose Bowl and walking off as a young boy that was playing games in the backyard, trying to win the Rose Bowl against my brother. Winning the Rose Bowl and walking off the Rose Bowl was the best ever. Making my first tackle and running out in Ohio Stadium, I swear to God, that's like jumping out of an airplane equivalent. So like, if you want to know what it's like to like run down a kickoff and like knock somebody out, go jump out of an airplane. That's as close as you're going to get. It's still not as good. But my favorite, I've had some interceptions, almost touchdowns, that kind of stuff. Knocked a dude out against Indiana. That was fun, when you hit people, I showed my kids, I got a tape for when I was in TV. I snipped some of my harder hits, and I clipped them all together, and I showed my boys one day. I was like, hey, you let me, because I was teaching them how to hit. I was like, this is how you hit someone. You run through them. Like, you don't like stop. You like literally want to run through them. Like, hit the gas. Like, there's no brakes. You just go right through them. Like, just try to like run right through them. And you don't care if they're hurt. Like, it's okay. It's just, that's part of the game. It's a violent game, and you want to go violent through them. So I put this thing in there, and we're watching it, and my kids are like, Dad, that's like targeting. I'm like, no, that's not targeting back then, man. That's not targeting, man. We would, you spot the ball, man. Second down is what that is.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, my favorite story, I'm going to share this with you because this is one of the fun stories. So I've got a lot of like, more impressive stories where, again, like I said, big hits or, most Buckeye leaves on the team that day or whatever. But I'm going to give you one that's one of my favorites because it's a fun story. So when we played as a sophomore out at Washington, okay, I don't know if you guys remember, 93 we played out in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been 93 or 94. 94. It was 94. It was at Washington. 93 was at home. It was our first time night game against Washington. Matter of fact, 95 Washington, I had an interception in the shoe. Late game. I remember that was a big time game. So that was awesome. But in 94, I wasn't a starter just yet. And I remember it was the first game of the season. Coop had us going out early like he always did for the games that were early because school didn't start. We were playing in Seattle. So we wanted to go to like the market and we wanted to go to see some different things. And I remember getting out there and we were televised game, nationally televised, ABC, prime time. And I'm on all the special teams as a freshman, as a sophomore. And this is my sophomore year. And we elect to receive the ball. And so they kick the ball off and we receive it and we get, tackled at like the 15-yard line. So I'm setting the stage here for you. The crowd is going bonkers. It's early in the year. It's our first drive of the game. We run the ball, -2 yards. Run the ball again, no gain. Throw an incomplete pass. Now it's 4th down, punt team comes out. Guess who that is? That's me. That's me and my 10 other buddies. And it's the first play as a sophomore. I'm nervous as you can imagine, right? I mean, we're at Washington, man. We're punting out of our end zone. It's the first drive of the game. I mean, again, guys, unless you know, maybe you don't care, you don't even know what I'm talking about. But if this is like what you do, this is a nervous moment. This is like one of those holy crap moments. I am going to do my job or else somebody's going to kill me or I'm doing my job. That's the attitude you got to have as a Buckeye. So I go in there and normally I'm a winger, like buzzing down and like tackling a dude. But because we're bumped up against kicking out of the end zone, it's tight formation. So I'm a wing tight. So that means I got to punch the inside dude that's the shortest distance to the ball and then deflect the outside guy, defender, that's trying to get to the ball. So to back up the story, before we got there, one of my dudes that didn't make the trip was a guy by the name of Shane Clark. And Shane Clark backed up Luke Fickle. Luke Fickle, of course, everybody knows Luke. He's a coach at Wisconsin. He's a bad man. He started at Ohio State for 50 straight games. Unbelievable. Anyways, his backup was a guy by the name of Shane Clark out of Chillicothe, Ohio. Really good guy. One of my favorites. Tough as nails, too. Problem is he played behind Luke Fickle. So you don't even know that name because Luke Fickle was the beast.
Right.
Anyway, Shane Clark, we were so happy because he had to go to Washington that year. Unfortunately, since he wasn't in our dorm. When we woke up to go down and get on the bus, he was not with us because we were in a different dorm. He slept. He went so excited he was going to be on the travel team that he went out that night and he slept in through his alarm. We don't have cell phones back then, guys. Coop is not waiting on Shane freaking Clark. We go. Fast forward. So Shane's not there. So here we are. Fast forward. Now we flash back into the moment. Bam! I hit this dude. Man, I deflect this guy. I hear the thud of the ball. I'm running as fast as I can, and I am flying. And I'm like, I'm gonna knock a dude's head off today, and it's gonna be great. And I'm looking at the flight of the ball, and here it comes, and it's like coming right towards the middle of the field. And as this guy's going to catch it, it's like a bang bang kind of play. it's the kind of play, swear to God, Coach Tressel, years later when I was doing TV, said, hey, Ryan, man, we got this punt coverage tape of like highlights. And man, there's a bunch of them on their view, but my favorite is when you like knock that dude out at Washington. So this is the play I'm talking about. This dude goes to catch the ball and bam, I nail this guy. Ball comes out. I grab it. I'm right in the middle of the W. Now the problem is, while I was looking for the flight of the ball,
Fair catch.
my man was doing one of these. Now, if you know anything about football, you know if a human is doing this, you don't touch him.
You do this.
Yeah, you do this. That's right. He does this, you do this. So he raises his hand. I'm so excited that I nailed this dude. So now there's like a minute off the clock, right? We just punt out of our end zone. I've had my one play against Washington, and I'm at the 50-yard line. The hanky's on the field. You know, I look over. Coach Cooper's foaming at the mouth, and I got to walk from that point to the sideline. And I look over at Coop, and I'm thinking to myself, if I could trade places with Shane Clark right now, boy, would I like to do that. Oh, but in all honesty, I run over, and Coop is so mad. And Coop will tell you this too. Coop wanted to kill me. And Coach Stock, who was the special teams coach at the time, the punt team coach, he comes, intercepts me in between. Thank God, because Coop was about to like grab me and like yank me, and so Coach Stock runs in between and grabs me around the neck. He says, "Gosh dang it, listen to me," and I'm just all ears. He says, if you're ever going to make a mistake, you make it full speed, and that's why I love you. I can't wait to see you knock the next one out. And I thought, is he mad at me or is he not mad at me here? But no, to this day, that's a great coaching lesson that I tell young coaches and young people that, you know, we're going to make mistakes. We as young players, as humans, whatever. But if you're going full speed and if your heart's in the right place, we can absorb the mistake. We can absorb it because that's how we want you to play. We want you to play with relentless just abandonment of just go for it. Throw it out there. In life, if you go for it, you're going to be successful. The times that you're just kind of sitting back and you're a little too, I'm not sure. I'm going to make the safe play. I'm going to let him gain 2 yards. Don't let them gain a yard, darn it.
Right.
Go as hard as you can. Go full speed in life, and that's the way you play football, and that's the way I like to try to teach kids to play life, and that's my favorite story of football at Ohio State.
All right, so I remember this game. I remember this moment. I'm in 6th grade, and I remember that happening, and I remember my dad going, "Oh, that was Ryan," and my mom going, "Oh no, that was Ryan," and I was thinking, "Oh no, that was Ryan." And then years later, they had that on ESPN Classic. They had that game, and I watched it, and I was like, "Attaboy, Ryan!" Kill him. Speaking of my parents, they don't know how to do super chats, so they called my wife and said, "We'll donate $100 tonight to 2nd and 7." So there's another $100. And
gosh.
Blue Wolverine said, "Hey, remind everybody in the chat about the good cause tonight." So all of the super chats tonight are going to 2nd and 7. He gave another 10. That gives us 210. Donald and Karen Rosbach, $20 for the kids. Go Bucks. So that's
so nice, Donald.
That's
Karen.
230. And Eric Boggs and Sarah Boggs are going to give another 20. That's 250, Ryan. So we got to our goal tonight of $250. And so on top of that, Ryan, because I still am in touch with your parents, and you've been so gracious to always say, "Eric, I'll sign anything you want." I've got a lot of Ryan Miller autograph stuff here, guys. I do. And so tonight we're going to give away a 2nd and 7 Buyers Auto Ryan Miller autograph tonight. We're going to give it away to somebody.
Cool.
So right now we have our Wheel of Fortune that we have pulled up. We're going to pull this up real fast. It's got all the names of everybody who has not won anything from our Pay It Forward month of July. So those of you, the 4 of you who won autographs in the last 4 weeks from stuff, aren't on this one. So we're going to pull this up and give away Ryan's autograph tonight here. So let's see if we can't transition this over and give this wheel a spin here, hopefully. And here we go. Donald and Karen Rosbach. Donald Rosbach. Going to get this Ryan Miller autograph. I'll send that in the mail to you, Donald. I got your address already. So Donald Rosbach, who just gave us the 20. So that's a good timing there. Mel added another 20 to that tonight. So let me transition this over. Sorry. Mello gave us another 20. So that's going to be 270 tonight. Just for that hilarious last story, Mello said. So $270, and anything else we collect tonight is going to go to 2nd and 7. Ryan, can we have you come back after the season's over, brother, after football quiets down a little bit?
Man, you guys can have me anytime. You just let me know. I mean, the reality is I got to get on here sooner than later because we got to get JR's background updated. That's the truth.
Yeah, and speaking of JR, he just gave $10 for the kids, and if you're going to make a mistake, make it full speed. That's right.
That's right. Maybe we should have that in his backdrop. That should be a quote in his backdrop.
You get me a sign, Ryan. I'll put it back there. I'll put it right there above the top. If you're gonna make a mistake, make it full speed. I'll put it right up there at the top.
That might be a good idea. Eric, let's make that happen.
Let's do that. Let's make it happen. Ryan, I'll be in touch with you. I'd like to give this to you in person. Meet you over at the 2nd and 7 offices. I've never been over there. I'd love to have Chris and I live here in Central Ohio. We'll come down and meet you down there and get the grand tour and get you your check and make sure that we touch base with you here hopefully before the season gets started. We'll have Ryan back on, guys. I promise you. We will make that happen. Another 20. We just keep adding them, man. Jeremy Moreland with another 20.
You know what you ought to do, Eric? We ought to get some other silver bullets on here, man, and they can tell you some other of those stories that a lot of my buddies.
I might faint if Mike Vrabel comes on. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like Braves might be the. This might be a good year for Braves because he's kind of taking a year where he's consultant, taking it off.
Well,
so maybe
Ryan,
we get
you
Braves
got my
on
number,
with
and I'm willing to bring any of them on here. So.
Absolutely.
So that might be a good idea. All those guys, Rob Kelly and Damon Moore.
Now, Rob Kelly's originally from my hometown, Mount Vernon.
That's right.
He went and played for Newark Catholic.
Yep.
He went and played for Newark
Catholic. So that Matt Calhoun guy I was telling you about before was a Heath guy. So Newark Catholic, Heath, all that stuff. But yeah, man, you guys just keep me posted, and I love what you guys are doing. And besides for JR's backdrop, other than that, you guys are doing great.
We'll fix it, Ryan. We'll make you proud, okay?
We're gonna get that knocked out, man.
We had to decorate JR first. Now we'll work on the backdrop.
Which I didn't even show you guys. I have my slippers tonight.
Oh,
so I'm all decked
out.
He's got the robe.
I tell you what, Eric, if you and Chris come to my office,
if
you come to my office, I've got more stuff that it probably makes more sense to be on the background of your guys' podcast than in my office. So you get over to my office and we'll hook you guys up so you guys can have plenty of stuff.
Sounds great. Sean Rawlings with another $5 holler. Ryan Day's beard. I love that name. Ryan Day's beard with a $20 super chat. Guys, you guys have been so gracious tonight. Thank you so much. I have to add it all up here in a little bit. We got to be getting close to $300
well, I think we're over
tonight. So appreciate everybody's super chats. Ryan, we'll have you back on. We'll be in touch. We're going to go to commercial break. Let Ryan go. Tuck those kids in bed. I'm sure they got practice in the morning over there. So get them going. And we'll come back and we're going to be talking about we're going to be ranking the 18 coaches in the Big Ten from worst to first. So we still got some more work to do tonight. Ryan, thank you so much, my friend. We will have him back on very shortly here this season. Let me jump over here and get this commercial rolling, and we will be back.